My name is Cassandra Evers. I'm 38 years old, the youngest daughter of one of the most powerful corporate families in Texas. I grew up in a house where power was measured in acreage, oil shares, and how many boardrooms bore your last name. My siblings were groomed for legacy. I was groomed to be grateful. They went to Yale and Stanford. I stayed in Houston and built relationships, the kind you can't buy or digitize. For as long as I can remember, I've been the outsider in a family that measures worth by control. And maybe I would have stayed that way, quiet, overlooked, not executive material, if a stranger hadn't walked into our boardroom and tried to take everything I built. He thought firing me would end the story. That's how little he understood whose company he just walked into. 7:58 a.m. Downtown Houston. The glass tower of Evers Consolidated was already gleaming, shadows from the west barely touching the 39th floor. Cass walked in with a steel-gray blazer, hair tied back, heels sharp and silent. Security didn't look at her. They never did. She was background to her own legacy. But that morning, something felt off. The silence had shape, like people were bracing for impact. She stepped off the elevator. Pause. The glass boardroom doors were closed. Odd. She reached for the handle. It opened an inch before her hand touched it. "You're not on the list for this session, Ms. Evers." A whisper. A warning. It came from Michaela. Usually loyal, voice now a monotone. Her eyes darted to someone inside. Cass stepped in anyway. The room fell still. 14 board members. 2 attorneys. 1 executive assistant scribbling in a digital pad. And at the head of the table, a man she'd never seen in person. Tailored navy suit. Subtle pinstripe. Dark tie. Skin like he hadn't seen a real sunrise in weeks. His smile was surgical. "Ms. Evers," he said without standing. "Welcome. Though I believe your presence today is unexpected." Cass didn't blink. "This is the final session for the Calver Ranch deal. I built this merger." The man folded his hands. "Correction. You initiated it. I'm here to finish it." He nodded to the legal assistant. "Per decision of the board, I've been brought in as Chief of Strategic Expansion. Effective immediately." Her chair, her literal chair, was now occupied. Nameplate, Dorian Cross. 8:05 a.m. Her badge access revoked. Email locked. Company device auto-wiped. It took less than 7 minutes. Escorted to her office by security, no handcuffs, but it felt like them. "The higher the tower, the longer the fall," her father used to say. But no one ever talks about the ones forced to jump. She packed slowly, deliberately, her fingers brushing the leather-bound binder she hadn't opened in years. Calver's handwritten notes. His personal phone number. Terms of heritage protection he'd sworn he'd only honor with her. Tap. A knock on the open office door. It was Tyler, an intern she'd once mentored. Pale. Shaking. I shouldn't be here." Cass turned. He slid something onto her desk. A folded square of company stationery. Then he disappeared down the hall like a shadow. She unfolded it. One line, written in pencil. "They're not after the merger. They're after you." At her apartment later, Cass powered up her personal laptop. Ping. An unread email. No sender. Subject. Do not trust the minutes. Attachment, a recording. Edited board minutes. Her voice, cut, spliced, rearranged. "They made me sound like I was sabotaging the deal," she whispered. Soul's voice in her head from years ago. In rooms where power plays happen, truth is never the first casualty, trust is. She paced her apartment, blinds drawn. The storm outside was building. Inside, her mind ran faster than thunder. A whisper of thought emerged, dark and steady. "If he thinks he just fired me, then he clearly doesn't know whose company he just walked into." The first thing Cass did was kill the lights. Her apartment fell into silence, the kind that feels too quiet, like sound was being held back. She stood still, back to the door, and listened. Nothing. No footsteps. No clicks. But paranoia isn't about proof. It's about instinct. She closed the blinds, took out her personal burner phone from the ceramic vase where she always hid it. The screen lit up. One unread message. You need to see this. Hotel Belmont. 9 p.m. S. Sol. She hadn't seen him in 2 years. Not since Vegas. Not since the last time someone tried to erase her. Cass changed into black jeans, gray hoodie, no jewelry. She moved like someone who knew every corner had eyes. Because in this world, every corner did. 9:02 p.m. Hotel Belmont. Midtown Houston. The bar was too polished, too empty. The bartender didn't make eye contact. Sol was already seated. Same leather jacket. Same unreadable stare. 3 minutes late, he said, sipping something neat. You're slipping. Cass sat, scanning the room. What do you know? Sol slid over a flash drive. No case. Just cold plastic. Company-wide data sweep initiated 6 hours before you were fired. All outbound personal communications flagged. Your old laptop? Breached from internal IP. Password cracked in under 3 minutes. Her stomach twisted. And that wasn't the scary part, he added. Cut to black SUV. Empty highway. Interior. Cass and Sol. Silence except for the rhythmic hum of tires. Sol pulled a second device from his coat. A secured tablet. Opened a folder marked Legacy Chain Evers/Calver. There's a second version of the merger agreement, Sol said. Digitally dated 5 days ago. Same valuation. But the terms. He tapped the screen. No land legacy clause. No name retention clause. No employment guarantees for ranch staff. Calver gets bought, then burned. Cass swallowed hard. Dorian. Sol nodded. Worse. He brought in a shadow firm. Delaware-based. Shielded ownership. Registered last month. Cass stared out the window. You know what my father used to say, she murmured. Money doesn't lie, but people buy it to help them do just that. 10:31 p.m. Cass parked 2 blocks away from the Calver estate. Dust still clung to the black iron gates. Porch light on. A shadow moved behind the drapes. She rang once. The door opened with a creak. I told myself I wouldn't open this door again unless it was you, said Harold Calver. Stiff. Stoic. But the corners of his eyes held something that looked like betrayal. I'm here because something's wrong, Cass said. You need to hear it from me. He let her in. Wood floors. Bourbon in the air. A fire crackled in the background. I heard you stepped down, Calver said, eyes narrowing. I didn't step, Cass replied. I was pushed. He said nothing, just stared at her. Cass reached into her coat, pulling the printed version of the altered term sheet. She laid it on the table. Calver glanced down, then frowned. I never signed this version. You weren't supposed to. And he said you agreed to get the deal. Cass froze. Who did? Dorian. Told me you said the family legacy terms were outdated sentiment. That you needed to think like a shareholder, not a historian. The air in the room changed. Heavy. She looked into his eyes. Harold, you know I wouldn't. I don't know anything anymore, he cut in. Silence. Then he reached into his safe drawer and pulled out the original copy. Her version. Her notes in the margins. You better fix this, he said quietly. Because if you don't, I'll go public with everything. And that includes your family's dirty history with mine. Cass drove back through the dark stretch of Route 59. She was shaking, not from fear, from fury. At 12:12 a.m., her phone lit up. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. You should stop digging, Cassandra, a voice said. Male. Controlled. Distorted slightly, like filtered through a voice modulator. You're playing with documents that don't belong to you. Walk away. Then the line went dead. She didn't move for a full minute. Not until the streetlight outside flickered, once, twice, then black. Her voice was a whisper. If Elaine isn't on this, then the betrayal just got personal. 2:47 a.m. Cass sat motionless in the middle of her kitchen floor. One hand gripped her coffee mug. The other clutched a small USB like it was a detonator. The street outside pulsed with intermittent light. Not headlights. Surveillance flood lamps. They weren't just watching. They were waiting. 6:12 a.m. Elena Evers answered the door, already dressed. Silk blouse. Makeup precise. Not a single hair out of place. Always picture perfect. Even when she was hiding something. Do you have any idea what time it is? Elena hissed, clutching her robe tighter. Cass pushed past her without waiting. Save it. We're past the part where we pretend to care about etiquette. The apartment smelled like citrus and secrets. Cass went straight for the wine bar, poured 2 fingers of scotch, Elena's brand, and dropped the flash drive onto the marble counter. Tell me Dorian didn't get this from you. Elena blinked. What the hell is that? Don't play dumb. You knew about the second term sheet. You let them rewrite the deal behind my back. Elena's voice lowered. You don't understand what you're poking at. No, you don't, Cass snapped. This isn't just a hostile takeover. This is character assassination. Cut scene. Elevator descending. Floor indicator glitching. Flickering between 17 and 16. Cass leaned against the wall, breath shallow. You know what scares me most, she muttered to herself. Not betrayal. Familiarity. 7:44 a.m. Marlo Blackwood's office. Or what used to be his. Door locked. Glass frosted over. Empty desk. A post-it note stuck to the inside glass, on indefinite leave. The receptionist smiled tightly. Mr. Blackwood is unavailable. Cass stepped closer. Unavailability isn't a job title. Company policy says. Cass didn't let her finish. She turned and walked. Behind her, the receptionist picked up the phone. No words. Just listened. 9:03 a.m. Her apartment. Lights off. Curtains drawn. She checked the hallway before unlocking the deadbolt. Once inside, she turned. The photo frame on her console table was tilted. Her pulse jumped. Cass reached behind it. The safe. Still locked. She punched in the code. The door popped open. Most things were there. Passports, cash burner. But not the green folder. The one labeled Legacy, Authorizations. Gone. She didn't scream. Didn't breathe. Just stared at the empty slot like it had betrayed her in person. 10:26 a.m. Back alley behind Evers Tower. Sol leaned against a rusted-out delivery van, black hoodie drawn low. You were followed, he said without looking up. Of course I was, Cass answered. What do you have? Sol handed her a printout. Financial records. Transfer logs. A signature. She stopped reading. Elena, she breathed. This isn't just blackmail. Sol's jaw clenched. It's leverage. The kind that buys silence. Cass looked up. You think she was coerced? No. I think she sold you out before she had to. Cut. Parking garage. 3rd sublevel. Cass's car. She opened the door. Slid in. The glove box was cracked open. Inside, not her registration. A single photo. Printed on high-gloss paper. Cass. Meeting Calver. Date stamped. Circled in red ink. No note. No threat. Just the image. A warning. 11:02 a.m. Elena's voice trembled on speakerphone. I never meant for this to go this far. Cass didn't answer. They said they'd bury Dad's offshore agreements. Keep the foundation untouched. I didn't have a choice. We all have choices, Elena, Cass interrupted. You just picked the one with a cleaner exit for you. Elena sobbed once. Marlo knew. He tried to stop it. That's why they... Click. The call dropped. Cass stared at the phone. A single bar of service. Then nothing. Dead zone. She stood slowly, looked out her window. Black sedan. Tinted windows. Parked too long to be casual. Every instinct flared. She picked up the phone again. Called Soul. Voicemail. Then, a text from a number she didn't know. The folder you're looking for isn't missing. It was claimed. Walk away, Cassandra. She turned toward the mirror in the hallway. Her reflection wasn't calm. It was war. Let them come. I've got the original blueprint, and now I know exactly how to burn it all down. 8:45 a.m. Storage Unit 1382. Industrial District. North Houston. The metal door creaked upward, dust floating in like ghost skin. Cass stepped in, scanning the rows of stacked banker boxes, the smell of mothballs and cold steel, the kind of place secrets go to wait. She unlocked the back crate with a key her father once handed her without words. Inside, a red binder, leather, worn edges, a single label burned into the cover. Legacy clauses, trigger protocols. Cass flipped it open. Inside, behind the familiar script of her father's cursive, were 3 notarized signatures, hers, Marlowe's, and the former legal head now deceased. And beneath that, a clause few board members even knew existed. If 3 core tenets of the family charter were violated, oversight, transparency, succession, an emergency override could dissolve any board action and reinstate sole fiduciary command. Her name, in print, pre-authorized, sealed. They'd buried her, but he'd buried this. Cut scene. Soul's apartment, kitchen counter, tablet screen lit, news, scroll flashing. Evers' merger in jeopardy. Cass watched in silence. They're leaking misdirection, Soul muttered. Buying time. I'm done waiting, she said. She plugged the tablet into her laptop, loaded a folder labeled Detonation. Photos, audio clips, board chat logs, date stamped, location verified, Dorian's voice, Elena's approvals, internal memos, red lines to the contract stripped of all legacy terms. 3 clicks and this hits every major financial desk on the East Coast, Soul said. Cass stared at the screen. Not yet. 10 a.m. Conference call. Shareholder liaison. Cass didn't waste time. I'm calling an emergency shareholder vote under provision 17D. Pause on the other end. You don't have that authority, Ms. Evers. Not yet, Cass replied, but I will in 48 hours. Unless you'd like to be on record ignoring a binding clause signed by your former chairman and general counsel. Silence. We'll review it. You do that. Cut. Lobby of the Houston Business Consortium. Glass walls, granite floors, an atrium built for power plays. Cass walked through with her head high, binder clutched like a weapon. Every step echoed. Dorian stood by the espresso bar, flanked by 2 unknown suits. He saw her. His jaw tensed. She didn't stop, but she turned just before the elevator closed. 3 days, she said. He smiled. To do what? To remind them whose blood runs in those balance sheets. 1:15 p.m. Cass stood outside Evers' Consolidated HQ. She pressed a button on her earpiece. Soul confirmed. Live stream is ready. Camera on. She looked dead into the lens. This company wasn't built on stock options. It was built on memory, land, legacy. And if anyone thinks we're trading that for a tech-slick lie dressed in corporate jargon, think again. Behind her, the downtown skyline blurred in heat shimmer. You came for a merger, but you woke a war. 2:42 p.m. Her phone buzzed. Unknown caller. Cass answered. Turn around. She did. Elena stood by her car. Pale. Broken. Cass froze. You win, Elena said softly. But you don't know the full story. Try me. It wasn't blackmail, she whispered. It was protection. For Dad's offshore account. If that fund goes public, the foundation collapses. Schools, clinics, people lose everything. Cass blinked. You let them burn me for philanthropy? No. I let them burn you to keep a promise he made in 1998 to a woman we never talk about. Our half-sister. Silence fell like a gunshot. You didn't know? Elena said, voice trembling. He left her the seed money. He gave her everything he couldn't give us, freedom. Cass stepped back. You're lying. Elena handed her a file. Check the trust signature. She did. And there it was. C. Evers. But not her. 6:21 p.m. Cass sat alone in her car, staring at the city blinking back at her. Sometimes, she whispered, you don't need enemies. Family will finish the job. She opened her laptop, clicked once, then again. Detonation initiated. Then tell me what it was about, before I decide who else has to fall. The first alarm went off at 4:17 a.m. Cass didn't reach for it. She jolted upright, sweat cooling on her skin. Floorboards creaked in the hall outside, not the house settling. Footsteps. She reached for her phone. Dead. No signal. Just static like a warning. She slipped out of bed, pulled on jeans and a leather jacket. Quiet as a breath. Cold as steel. The air smelled like rain and something darker. 6:22 a.m. Cass pulled into the empty lot behind Blackwood Tower. A gray dawn cut sharp lines through the glass. The reflection of a building that once stood for power now felt like a hollow fortress. She stepped out. Armor, jeans, hoodie, a pocket knife she rarely carried. Sol was there, sweating even though it wasn't warm. Morning, he said, like that explained anything. Did you bring it? She asked. He slid a manila folder across the hood of the car. Inside, financials, trust documents, a digital footprint that ran deeper than she knew. Your father's real will, Sol said, the one no one's supposed to see. Cass blinked. Dad told me once, she murmured, that sometimes the truth is the most dangerous weapon you can carry. She opened the first page. Her name was there, but not as heir, as executor of everything. Then she saw the clause, a silent trigger embedded in the corporate charter. If anyone intentionally manipulated corporate governance, the entire control structure could be dissolved. It was legal. It was binding. It was nuclear. Sol's phone buzzed. Cameras rolling, he said. Board is monitoring us. Cass looked around. Empty lot. But eyes were everywhere. Because nothing in this story moved without watchers. 9:08 a.m. Boardroom briefing. Emergency session. Dorian stood at the head. Calm. Too calm. Internal communications have been compromised, he told the room. There's chatter about a rogue leak. He glanced at Cass. She didn't flinch. Marlowe sat near the middle, eyes darting, collar tight. Something about him wasn't right. Then Elena walked in. Not behind Cass. Beside Dorian. Cass's breath caught. Elena smiled. Too smooth. Marlowe didn't smile. Not even once. 10:17 a.m. Public notification. Evers Consolidated Faces Internal Governance Review. Everyone was watching now. Stock tickers dipped. Rumors blossomed into damnation. Cass stood in the hallway. Phones ringing in voices too high to distinguish. You should have quit when you had the chance. Legacy means nothing. Board control is everything. She could feel the tension coil tighter in her chest. A security guard stepped toward her. Ma'am, please move. She pushed past him, blood pounding. She needed clarity, not chaos. 12:33 p.m. Sol's call came through her burner. You were right, he said. Marlowe didn't try to stop anything. He orchestrated it. What? Cass shot back. Dorian is his insurance policy. Cass went cold. Insurance for what? You're about to find out. Cut. Private elevator. Penthouse floor. Cass and Sol stepped out onto gray carpet. Fragrant candles. Tension like static. Marlowe waited by the terrace windows. A view of Houston bathed in midday haze. You survived the first wave, he said slow. Cass took a step closer. Marlowe raised his hand. A photo print dropped at her feet. It was of Cass, meeting Calver. A red circle, written beneath. Seal the deal, or she dies. Cass picked it up. Her reflection in the glass fractured into 3 figures. Her, Marlowe, Dorian. Someone behind her whispered a name she hadn't heard in years. Her father's. The room tilted. Marlowe said, he didn't just build this company. He protected a secret, a legacy no one alive was supposed to uncover. Cass's pulse beat thunder. What secret? Marlowe unfolded a typed page. A land trust, offshore holdings, political leverage, a clause in the original charter, one that meant complete control of the company could transfer outside any board vote if certain conditions were met. This wasn't about money, Marlowe said. It was never about money. Cass looked up. The blue sky beyond the terrace looked cold. She whispered, then it was about power. They all heard it. A ping. Elena's phone. A message preview. Check the trust signature. Elena pallid. Cass snatched the device. Opened the file. Her name. Her father's signature. A timestamp years before she was even considered for leadership. But there was another name below it. A second heir. Untraceable. Unknown. Tick. Heart pounding. The room was silent. Too quiet. Cass's mind raced. She didn't know what kind of trap she'd just walked into. But she knew this for certain. You didn't steal my title. You were afraid of what I would find. Sirens broke the dawn. Cass didn't flinch. FBI. CID. Securities regulators. Tactical vests. Flashing lights. They surrounded Blackwood Tower like vultures circling a carcass. It was 7:02 a.m. The day everything changed. Cass stood in the mirrored lobby. Floors of polished marble. Silence that felt like a countdown. Footsteps clicked behind her. Evers. 2 agents. Badges clipped. Eyes sharp. We're here for the override clause and the evidence you released. She nodded. Controlled. Not afraid. Not yet. Agent 1 stepped closer. Walk with us. Cass didn't argue. Elevator doors sealed. 3 floors up. Her reflection fractured into sharp angles. Agent 2 spoke. Ma'am, the board has authorized full seizure of corporate assets. Cass felt nothing. She looked ahead. Thought. Power isn't in ownership. It's in the truth you choose to expose. 9:15 a.m. Boardroom stage. Glass walls. Dozens of cameras. Live stream activated. Stockbrokers. Legal analysts. Media tanks. Everyone was watching. Dorian stood at podium center. Too clean. Too confident. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, voice polished. We regret the chaos. But these allegations are unverified. Assertions with no legal basis. No fear. No doubt. Cass stepped out of the shadows. Past the agents. Unarmed. Assertions, she said. Silence snapped. You didn't account for one thing. Dorian blinked. You didn't factor in legacy. The room shifted. She pulled a manila envelope from her coat. Inside, a USB drive and a stack of paper. Trust documents. Offshore financial records. Signed notarized affidavits. Time-stamped backups. Every transaction. Every shell corp. Every hidden ledger. Marlowe Blackwood's name was there. Elena's. Dorian's. It wasn't just about the merger. It was about embezzlement, concealment, manipulation of shareholder equity, misrepresentation to federal regulators. Cass began reading aloud. Under the terms of Section 17D, any intentional manipulation of governance, fiduciary duty, or contractual misrepresentation results in immediate dissolution of current board structure. Dorian's face turned gray. His calm mask cracked. Sol stood by her side, phone live-streaming every word. She continued, "And any party complicit in concealment is subject to civil and criminal prosecution under U.S. securities law." Gasps. The legal counsel gasped. The press cameras zoomed in. Dorian swallowed hard. Cass saw it the moment he knew it was over. Distraction, a loud crash. A window shattered behind Dorian. Glass shards rained. Everyone ducked. Cass didn't. Her eyes locked on the only person in the room unmoved. Elena. Pale. Hands shaking. She held a folded paper. One line, written in her sister's script. "Protect the Foundation." Cass read it silently. Her mind raced. In war, loyalty fractures the hardest. Agent 1 stepped forward. "Ms. Evers, we need a statement." Cass looked out the tall glass windows, broken shards glinting like danger. Dorian Cross and Marlowe Blackwood conspired against this company, deceived its shareholders, and betrayed the legacy of every individual who built it. Her voice was calm, sharper than steel. Agents moved in. Handcuffs. Miranda warnings. Everyone was stunned, even the media. The live feed froze, then replayed her words in slow motion. "Legacy is not a line item to be negotiated." Outside, helicopters circled. A thin layer of rain began to fall. Cass didn't flinch. Her reflection in the wet pavement flickered, fractured like the boardroom's shattered window, but still whole. Elena approached, tears wet and silent. Cass didn't turn. "You knew," Cass said. "I thought I was protecting you," Elena whispered. "Protecting the Foundation." Foundation. The word felt heavy. Cass stood still. Sometimes to save what matters, you must burn the lies first. Then she walked away. No forgiveness. Just truth. 12:48 p.m. Chopper ride. Cass in the back. Agents in front. City of Houston, shrinking below. The news ticker crawled across screens. Corporate coup averted. High-profile arrests made. Stock rebounds after scandal exposure. Evers consolidated placed under interim fiduciary control. Her phone buzzed. One message. From Sol. "We did it." Cass stared out the window. The skyline blurred in rain. She thought of her father's voice. "We don't build empires to own them. We build them to do what's right." She breathed. Hard. And slow. 3:22 p.m. Temporary office. Interim board members. Federal monitors. Legal eyes everywhere. Cass stood before them, binder in hand. She laid down the original legacy clause. Signed. Notarized. Unassailable. Then she spoke. "Today we begin again. On terms that honor people, not paper. Loyalty, not loopholes." The room nodded. Not with blind faith, but careful respect. A new chapter started. Not rewritten. Reclaimed. Evening settled. Cass walked out onto the terrace. Rain washed the windows. Her reflection looked calm. Almost human. She thought again. Control is not given. It's uncovered in every truth we refuse to hide. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't the outsider. She was the heir. Not by blood alone. By conviction. By courage. By truth. She turned from the skyline. Dark clouds parted ever so slightly. And she whispered, not to anyone but to the night, "I didn't just save this company. I saved what it is meant to be."